back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I am here today to tell you a little bit about some books which were on my shelf for a long time, and I decided I would finally start reading them, and then I didn't like them. So these books are all books that I've either DNF'd or they are books that I have finished but I will be getting rid of or donating to charity because they just weren't for me. So I'm probably going to be fairly quick on these because, as I say, I DNF'd some of them. I didn't actually get that far into them, but I'll tell you why, and let me know in the comments if any of them are your favourites, so you completely disagree with me, or if you two didn't really love these books. Let's get started. So the first book which I DNF'd at page 150 was actually by an author that I've read previously and I've enjoyed her work previously, and that is 84K by Claire North. This is one of her books that I've had on my shelf for a while. I've actually got another one of her books still on my shelf, and I have enjoyed previous works by her, but this one I struggled with. And the concept behind this is that it is a world where you can get away with any crime, no matter what the crime is, even if it's murder, even if it's like genocide, as long as you can pay for it. As long as you have the money to pay off whatever crime you've done, you don't have to go to prison. You don't have to get, locked away for it. There's no real punishment if you have money. So it's a pretty brutal world, it's a pretty horrible world, and we actually follow a guy who works in the office where they work out how much a crime is going to cost someone to commit. So after the fact, after the crime has happened, they will work out the paperwork, they will add everything up, they will figure out how much it's cost different parties, and they will come up with a bill. And if the person who committed the crime can pay the bill, they're off scot-free. If they can't, that's where they get into troubles. However, our main character's pretty boring. I didn't like him as a character right from the start, and I think that's probably part of why I struggled with this book. The world itself, and I say this about all Claire North books because I think she comes up with really interesting ideas, the world is really cool. But it's a dark world and it's a horrible world, and we follow a story where this man who we're following, one of his exes, like his ex-girlfriend from when he was in school or something, gets killed, and he ends up having to work out how much it's going to cost the murderer. And of course this raises some issues for him. Up until now he's just been doing his job, he's just been living a quiet life, adding up the cost of things, but it's never really been that close to him until now. And now when someone in his personal life has been killed and he is actually responsible for adding up the cost of their death, it starts to become something he questions, and the world in general starts to become something he questions. Now, I think part of the reason that I struggled was his character, but equally, the way this is written is very stream of consciousness. The story is not told in a normal format. It's very much written the way someone might think, which means that if you like that, you're going to really enjoy it. But I found it a real struggle to sort of see sentences that would be like cut off halfway through, or repetition, or just things that wouldn't necessarily work in a written format for most authors. And she does it, she breaks the bounds, and I think that's why I like Claire North, because she does things that are different and she tries them. This just didn't work for me. I didn't like the format that she wrote for this book, and I found it really disjointed. I found it very difficult to like the characters. I found it very difficult to empathise with them because of the way it was written. So I didn't like this. I gave up on it at page 150, like I say. I think it's about 400 pages, so I was a fair chunk into the story. I just wasn't getting anywhere. I wasn't loving it. I wasn't feeling connected. I wasn't enjoying the concept. I felt annoyed by the way it was written, and I felt annoyed by the character, and I don't want to sit there and read a book that annoys me if there's nothing else going on that I am enjoying about it, and that's kind of how I felt on this one. So unfortunately, that one joined my DNF pile, and I am going to be getting rid of it. I'm going to give it to charity, or someone else who wants it, because yeah, I didn't like that one. Let me know your thoughts on Claire North. I'd be really interested because I have enjoyed her other books. She's a bit of a mixed author for me. I think sometimes she really works and sometimes she doesn't. So yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think of her. The next one, which I picked up, I am a bit sad about actually not finishing this one,
because I've owned it a long time, and that was Ambelo by Laura Eleanor Donnelly. And Ambelo, it has a beautiful cover, first off, which I think is a large part of why I bought it. And I saw a couple of my friends many years ago on BookTube talking about this. They loved it when it first came out. They really recommended it. I think it has LGBT themes as well, which was another reason that I really wanted it to try out. I just didn't like it. I, from the start, didn't like the setting. I didn't like the world. I did not like it. It's set in a kind of, I would say, like Great Gatsby era, or sort of 1920s inspired kind of era in America, and it's very American in sort of tone. So maybe this is something where it's a cultural thing that I didn't love it as much as other people, because most of the people who I've seen who really enjoyed this are American, and being British, it felt very hard to connect with or to enjoy it for some reason. It was not just the writing style, I think it was just the whole concept is very Americanized, which works fine if you're from that country. Or if you have a particular interest in it. But personally, I don't love that era of history. I feel like it wasn't really something that super interests me, and I just didn't get behind it. I also think it jumps around from character to character quite quickly, so the chapters are pretty short, and they're sort of dipping in and out of these characters, and for me, they were quite dislikable characters. They were kind of cheating on each other right from the start, and I just didn't like them very much. I didn't like the way they talked to one another or treated one another behind each other's backs. I just found I was not a fan, and I couldn't find one character, even though this is multi-POV, I couldn't find one character that I really liked enough to carry the story for me. Sometimes in a big epic fantasy, I have lots of characters, some of them I hate, some of them I like, and one of them will be enough to pull me through. But that was not the case in this one, so I ended up DNFing this one just before page 100 or so, I think. It just wasn't for me. Very US heavy, very inspired by that kind of period, that culture, and I just didn't like it. So yeah, also another one I'm getting rid of, sadly. But it's fine. I need to get the books either read or get rid of the books, so it's cool. But yeah, let me know what you thought of that one. I know this is going to probably be one that a lot of people do like. I just didn't like it, I'm afraid. And I don't think I got that far into the story. Like, I'm pretty sure it might have picked up, but I just was not a fan. And you know, sometimes you can just tell from the start that this is just not going in a direction that you're interested in. Even if it takes a turn, you're probably not going to be interested, and that's how I felt with it. So yeah, I just gave up on that one. The other one that I recently read, actually I finished this one, and I will be getting rid of it because I just don't think it holds a candle to a lot of the books I have read. And I think it is a children's book, actually. It's by James A. Owen, and it's called Here There Be Dragons. Now, I will say it's illustrated and written by the author, and I do think the illustrations were great. Absolutely love the illustrations. However, I did not love the story. The story reminds me a little bit of The Heir Affair, and I liked that story okay, but I found that it was difficult because it's inspired by lots of contemporaries. So we see like Jane Eyre as part of that story. And in this one, we have a similar vibe where it's a story told based on other characters who are real, and they're woven into this fictional story. And this fictional story is kind of trying to explain their existence and how they came up with their own fictional stories, which all of these are authors, so they're all famous for writing. It's a great concept. I just don't think the author pulled it off in this particular book. So we have three main characters who are all scholars, and the book begins with this scholar who is one of their sort of masters being killed, and we don't really know too much about why he is killed. We just know he's been killed, and just before he was killed, he summoned one of them to speak with him, and he was going to tell him something. His student was going to learn some big thing, but he gets killed before that can happen, and so the student is going to meet him and turns up on the day where the police have found his body, and along with the student there are two other men who are also like scholars who sort of happen to be in the general vicinity for various reasons, and the three of them end up kind of getting forced into an adventure together. They are wrapped up quite quickly in this fast-paced chase down the Thames, and they are taken from what is essentially almost a like Victorian London, I'd say, into this other world where there is all sorts of stories woven together, and it's all about magic and mystery and things woven in. You can see that he's taken inspiration from the authors that he is highlighting and their books and put those things in a new format so that the authors that he's highlighting kind of take the inspiration back again for their books. It's a clever idea, and it makes a lot of sense if you could do it right. I just felt like it was aiming a little bit too highbrow for the sort of story that it was. It felt like a children's adventure story, but then there were these undertones of the authors and how they were being inspired for their own work later on in life. And for me, it just didn't feel like it fit those two together very nicely. I would have liked it to either be full-blown adventure story, forget the authors, just give us a great adventure, or much more focused on how the authors are taking inspiration for their works and how it's really impacting them and making them think and making them kind of reflect. And I just didn't feel like either of those things was done sufficiently. It was kind of brushing on both areas, but not in the way that I wanted it to. So again, I didn't feel the connection. The three main characters that we're following are called John, Jack and Charles, and I think they're based off of some very famous authors. There were lots of moments where I feel like there is a great glimpse of a really cool idea, and then it just doesn't go anywhere. And I was like, oh, okay. I would have liked to see more of that, or I thought that was really cool and we were going to go in that direction and we just didn't. So yeah, lots of that, which I would have liked to see kind of play out better. I think spotting the references is really fun, and I did enjoy that. And particularly at the end of the book where you see the afterword and you see a bit about who each of the authors are and they sign their full name and you kind of understand who they are. I think that was fun as a reveal, but it was very obvious to me the whole way through that some of these authors were authors that I'd obviously come across in fantasy, and trying to work out who from the inspiration was a big part of it. But I just didn't feel the fun. Like, I didn't feel the adventure was kind of there. I struggled with this, so I gave it 2 stars. It's okay. It's okay. I think it's the first in a long series as well, and I didn't think it was great. I like the illustrations. I think the illustrations are really, really good. He's obviously a great illustrator, and I like the imagination part of it. I just wanted him to push further with either of those directions, like the kids' direction or the adult direction. I didn't mind, but I didn't feel like it really did either. So I gave it 2 stars. I will be donating this one. I'd love to know if you read the series, what you thought of it, if it gets better. I also struggled with the air affair in the same way. I didn't have that connection to the story because it's kind of pulling real life and fiction together. I think it's something personally I just find really difficult to reconcile in my head. So it didn't work for me in that series or this one. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear if you have read any of these 3 books, what you thought of them, or if you've read any of the authors in general, what you think of them. And yeah, if anyone wants these, I'm going to be giving them to my local charity shop very soon. So thank you all very much for watching. I will see you in the next video very, very soon. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.